welcome to the American Sports Connection. I'm your host, the one and only Joey Railroads, and I have a very special guest with me today. Probably the biggest guest we've had on this show. Ladies and gentlemen, the owner of Combat Zone Wrestling. You might know him as your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler, or Dojo Deej, the Lariat God himself, Mr. DJ Hyde. How are you, sir?
Wow, that was a great introduction. I don't know how I should follow that. Bringing up the Dojo word stuff. Oh, awesome. So great. But I'm doing quite well. Thank you for having me on.
No, I appreciate you taking the time out of your insanely busy schedule.
Not a problem. I'm more than happy to. More than happy to come on anytime.
All right. Now, Deej, when I was growing up, I was a huge, it was probably a Hogan fan when it started for me. WrestleMania 5, when it was in Atlantic City, my dad actually tried to get tickets to that. We unfortunately couldn't make it. And then I think it really kind of hooked me around when John Tenta, who everybody knows as Earthquake, attacked the Hulkster and put him in the hospital when they had the thing where, send Hulk Hogan cards and all that stuff. That was the thing that really got me into wrestling, and then we went to SummerSlam later that year in the old Spectrum. My question is, were you a fan growing up, and is there one specific moment you remember growing up that kind of got you into wrestling?
I was a huge fan. Huge. It's probably been one of the more predominant things in my life since I was young. Basically, it's a short story of how I really got into it. When I was 5 years old, my dad took me and my uncle to what was the Spectrum back then to watch a WWE event. And it was right at the birth of Hulkamania. And, I can remember from the time when I was a little kid, that's what me and my dad did, was we watched wrestling. And it didn't really matter what it was, whether it was WWF at the time, or the NWA, or there's a ton of different things. But we went to a WWF show, and, we had second row tickets. Hulk Hogan wrestled Greg the Hammer Valentine in the main event. He's out there doing poses, doing the Hulkamania stuff. Right as that happens, my dad's taking me, and I'm a little kid at this point. And me, him, and my uncle were, walking through a hall, the back of the Spectrum. The next thing I know, I hear this big vulturous voice go out and go, Homer, because that's my dad's name. And my dad goes, Terry, and there's Hulk Hogan fresh off the match. Walking through there, and you should have seen me. I'm this little kid. And he goes, is this your kid? And picks me up one arm, and he's like, hey, I'm Hulk. And I'm just sitting there as a little kid, and I'm like, hey, I'm DJ. And pretty much since then, I never looked back. I was one of those guys growing up who, was a tape trader. I went to independent shows. I've seen, if you go back and you watch ECW and you watch the old ECW arena shows, you'll find me in the crowd. You'll find a lot of wrestlers from the Northeast area in that crowd, surprisingly. I was a guy who, when I was 10 years old, bugging my parents to go to independent shows and to take me places and things. I grew up in Delaware. Recently the Super 8 just happened, the 20th. So I've been going to ECWA for years, and I've seen a lot of great things. And, then once the tape trading and the independent boom and things along those lines happened, I was at a very young age everywhere. And, once I found out that, I could wrestle someplace, I went and did it. So it was one of those things.
Now, that's an amazing story about Hulk Hogan. I would have probably freaked out at that age.
I kind of did, but it was more or less me just kind of sitting there in awe of this ominous presence that, my dad and him went to school. They just happened to run into each other, at a gas station, and that's how we ended up getting the tickets.
Oh, wow.
And it was just one of those hey, come out, and blah, 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 and it was it was a sight to be seen, and it for me was really the real start of what I wanted to do. Hogan's, as much as he gets flack about things nowadays, he's probably the biggest inspiration I've ever had. But if you watch my wrestling, I mean, very much nothing like it. But there are things that I do and things that kind of pay homage to my heroes and things that are important to me.
Right. Now, you were actually trained by John Zandig and John, I'm going to try and pronounce his last name, Dahmer. Is that right?
That is incorrect. They gave me what I would say is my official training, though.
Okay.
I mean, I originally started on the road with guys like Cheetah Master when I was younger.
Okay.
I started more of an old school way. When I got to a wrestling school, it kind of got really formally trained. I didn't know a whole lot until I got to CZW, and I got there pretty early. I mean, I've been to over 16 Cage of Deaths now as being part of the company.
Holy cow!
So, at that point, I had been wrestling on really crappy. More of a crappy level, I guess. I really didn't know anything, but when I found CZW as a fan, I thought it was the next best thing to ECW. It was really embodied at the time what I think my vision of professional wrestling was, and I don't think people ever saw it. I think they just kind of said, "Oh, ultra violence," and that's what it was, but that's not really what it was. John created something that was for everybody, and you had great characters, you had good tag wrestling, you had hot women, you had it all. You had high flyers and these technical marvels and all this great stuff. And now I make it even more prevalent. And it just seemed like it was the right place for me to be at the time. And then I really got my formal training. And then I really started like learning the business, not like, hey, go out there and here's some moves that we taught you type stuff. So I mean, they're kind of credited for it because they're the ones who really made me into anything that I was at the time. And then, I moved on, and then I pretty much credit my knowledge and for who I am today to Al Snow. Guys like Al Snow and Tommy Dreamer, Les Thatcher, and now, mentors like Dave Marquez and have really helped me out and taught me so many great things that, through my many years of, hey, this is what it really is. This is how you really do this. And that has been something I've been able to pass on to the people I train.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to ask you. Like, how did they help you in the sense of learning the business as a worker and then as being a trainer yourself?
Well, I mean, it's not just a trainer. A lot of people have taught me great things as a promoter. And, when you first break into wrestling, you have a different mindset. You don't really understand what it is, what it's about. And when I first broke into wrestling, you didn't have a guy like me. You didn't have somebody there who was always on you, who was always on your back. It was very, the old school way was to keep people out, and not just to keep them out because they don't belong or for the right reasons to keep them out, but to keep them out so that they don't take your spot and keeping kayfabe and things like that, and which I still believe in all those factors, but you need a guide. You need somebody there to show you the ropes. It's just like any other job. If you do any job, you're going to shadow or mentor, or somebody is going to take you under their wing and show you around at most places. They're not just going to throw you out there and throw you to the wolves. Learning this business is not something that happens overnight. It takes years. And having good mentors there is great. And early on, I didn't have that, and I made a lot of mistakes. Some of which are still costing me to this day. And it's one of those things that, if somebody would have just been there to tell me, and your friends aren't the best to tell you, because when, a guy who's your peer or somebody who's like, hey man, you probably shouldn't do that. Just like, man, what do you know? Who are you? Blah, 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 blah. Like, you're kind of like, oh, you're just such and such, or you're my boy. Stop messing with me. Cause you never know, what's what, but somebody who knows what they're doing, knows it's a mentor. I didn't find that until I was some years in, until I was about 6-7 years in to professional wrestling, and that's so valuable nowadays to have someone like that that is a mentor that still, you know, stays in communication with you, still talk to you, even when you've gone on to be successful, even when you're, you know, at the highest level as you are, that they will still call and say, hey, what did you think of this? Or, hey, what do you think I can do? You know, what can I pitch? What can I do this? Or how would you approach this? And, you know, I never had that. You know, you just kind of go, oh, this is how things work. No, that's not how it works. Wrestling has its own laws and rules and et cetera, et cetera. But I will go on a rant about this and talk all day. So I'll kind of cut it off at that.
That's okay. Actually, there's a question for you in our chat room. Lance from Vancouver wants to know, what is your dream match, a one-on-one match, anybody in wrestling history, and if you the same thing as a tag match, but you can't have Hogan as your partner.
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't really have dream matches per se. I mean, you could sit here and say Hulk Hogan. I'd probably say Hulk Hogan or Kobashi. Those are two guys that, you know, I would enjoy and feel like we could do great things. You know, I would probably want to wrestle Hulk Hogan as him being Hulk Hogan, yellow and red, and me being the evil DJ Hyde of old of CZW.
Yeah.
So, somebody like Kobashi, though, man, what you say is probably the inventor of strong style. I mean, he is the big guy wrestler in Japan. He's what a lot of guys are based off of now. I mean, I'd want to wrestle him as a babyface, as more of the Dojo Deech type character, as you probably better know me as. I don't know how well most people know, because it's not really something I do anywhere besides the CZW Wrestling Academy.
Oh, okay.
But I do wrestle as a babyface at a lot of other places, and I'd want to wrestle him in a straight up, you know, something Corgan Hall type thing. I mean, they're not really dream matches, because for me, I'm at the point where I just want to wrestle. I don't care who you are. I don't care, you know, what it is. I just like wrestling. I just want to, you know, be a professional wrestler, be a promoter, you know, do what I have to do to get things done and have you enjoy what we're doing currently.
Okay, now
You asked about a tag match too, right?
Oh yeah, I completely forgot. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh man, that one's tough. To be honest, a team, somebody who I've never wrestled, that in a tag team match, and I really don't care who my partner would be, because I've never wrestled them in a tag match. I want to work with the Young Bucks. That would probably be about it. I mean, I'm very friendly with both of them, and you know, I've known both of them. I've booked both of them for CZW, and
that would be very interesting.
I just think I'd probably like to wrestle them. You know, if I had a tag partner per se, and who I would like to probably tag with me, probably one of my best friends, probably Adam Cole, just because, you know, he's one of my students, and you know, I know he's part of the elites with them and all that, but just I think we would have a lot of fun. So I don't know.
That'd be
just off the top of my head.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, those are the dream matches.
Okay, now how did you start actually getting into death matches? Was that like a specific thing you wanted to do, like when you got into business, or was it like a money thing, or like is there like a specific reason?
No, for me, there it really wasn't. It was more of a, you know, it wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm gonna be this guy and I gotta do ultraviolet, and, you know, or hey, they're paying me 100 times more to go out here and bleed. It was more for me. I was what we're known for, and when I was asked to do it, it was to take my character and take me to a different level and put me in better situations. One of the things that I'm very grateful about from John Zandig I'm one of the guys that in the later generation, not the original CZW crew, but I got that John Zandig training. I got smart to death matches. I got smart to hardcore by Tommy Dreamer. I learned from a lot of guys that they knew what they were doing. You know, I was still part of that when they were still really teaching the right way to do it. This is how this is done. This is why this is done. Nowadays, I don't think there's a lot of guys that do that. A lot of guys like rush. They just want to jump into it. They don't understand the purpose of hardcore. Even a lot of companies nowadays, CZW has been a company that, like, for years, and I own it, and it's something I don't particularly like, but, you know, they cater to the hardcore audience, so they do hardcore just to do it, not for any purpose, you know, not for any story, not for any emotional connection, which is what wrestling's built on, because that audience demands it, and that audience is a big part of what's paying the bills, and I get that. But learning how to work, I was fortunate that I had those guys that were still in their prime at that time. And might I mind you, God, that was 12, 15 years ago now when I started doing those. You know, and I was brought up through deathmatch wrestling, the tough way. I had to go through the guys. I had to get punched in the face by the Necro Butcher. You know, I had to have Nick Gage in his prime when he was just killing people. You know, I had to wrestle John Zandig a billion times and go through those things. I had to go out there and take my lumps, even though physically I was more imposing than most people, because I'm a huge human being. I mean, I'm 6'4". I'm legit 270 right now. I think at one point in wrestling I was over 360, so I was a pretty big dude.
Oh wow!
Yeah, when I first broke in, I was almost 400 pounds. I mean, when I was in high school, I was like 250, and then I had a major injury happen to me in college, and that pretty much ended my college career. And then, you know, I slowly lost some weight, and it was, you know, then I found professional wrestling, and that's how I kind of started. And, you know, it wasn't something that I really just was like, oh, hey, I'm going to do this because I want to do this. It was more along the lines of, no, I have to do this because this is what we do. You know, and now as I've gotten older, it has benefited me. If you want to be a top guy in this industry, you want to be somebody who's the main events, you need to be able to do gimmick matches. You know, guys like Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, you know, Triple H, and I'm just using them because, you know, everybody knows them. They've made a name, you know, in the Hell in the Cells, the ladder matches. They're epic. You know, if you look at guys that are making the names for themselves now, even some of those guys are, you know, they have to perform because your stories have to build to something, and you have to elevate yourself in those type of matches. And smart people know how to work with them very well.
That makes complete sense. Now, I always ask guys that do the deathmatch type stuff, is there like a different mindset when you're going into them as opposed to just, you know, a regular match?
For some people, yeah. There have been times in my career where you know, I have a different mindset, because, you know, with deathmatch wrestling, specific deathmatch wrestling, you know, certain things, there's a lot of uncontrollable factors. You can't manipulate things as much as you would like to. The risk is a lot greater. That's why it's called a deathmatch. I mean, if you're out there with light tubes or barbed wire or something like that, the risk of bodily harm and serious bodily harm is very, very high. And those are uncontrollable factors that you kind of have to keep in your head. Then where, you know, if I'm going out to wrestle a regular match, it's one thing to bump on barbed wire than to bump in a wrestling, you know, on a wrestling match. It's definitely different when somebody's hitting you over the head with a light tube, you know, than just, you know, somebody giving you a punch. It's a much different mindset, but the psychology is a little bit different too. And I think that kind of plays in because a lot of hardcore wrestling, specific deathmatch wrestling, is not that it's story. It's more of show, I think is the best way I can put it. Because audiences, they want to see in death matches, they want to see crazy. And you got to build to it. And that's that's not something that I see a lot of today. I mean, I talk to some of the guys that work for me, and we kind of feel that the future of deathmatch wrestling just isn't looking all that good in the U.S. right now. They don't understand how to work and how to show off what you're doing, and like I'm trying not to give things away in this conversation. So I apologize if I'm being a little cryptic because I'm sitting here going to myself thinking that I am, but it is a much different mindset and something you do have to prepare yourself.
Yeah. No, you're fine. Lance in our chat wants to know any major injuries from the death matches.
Oh yeah, I've had tons. If you look at my body, I have a big scar on the left side of my face from a double stomp through a pane of glass, which was an error. And I have that pane of glass cut my face and all the way down my shoulder and my back. Most of it's healed up, and you don't really see it. And it was just something that was a complete accident. It's a long story. I've had a lot of concussions. I've had about 17 concussions in my career.
Dear God.
Most of them have been from deathmatch wrestling. I've had a few that have not been. Most of them also are from the same three people. So surprisingly, that's usually what it is. I've also had I took a double stomp from Lucky 13 that we weren't even in a match. It was a post-match angle, and it hit my arm and cut the main artery in my right in my arm, and I almost bled out. And thank God that we have two full-time EMTs and a doctor on CZW staff, and they stitch, they know what they're doing. And at Tournament of Death, we have an ambulance and paramedics. So the good people that work for the company took great care of me and really got me where I needed to be. So I was pretty happy with it. But it was a major injury to the point my wife was freaking out, and I had a very good probability that I might never have wrestled again. And I've had a few other injuries, but nothing really super major. No surgeries, none of that have been from wrestling. Just a lot of stitches and cuts and banged up and loopy type things. So we'll go from there.
Now, is there like one specific match you're like most proud of in your career to this point?
I mean, a regular match or a death match?
It doesn't matter. Any match.
I'm very proud of what I've accomplished with Matt Tremont and myself. I think our Cage of Death match, while some people will, look at it and say, well, it wasn't as violent as Sammy and Danny, and it wasn't as bump-tastic as Cage of Death 5. Very, very proud of that. Very proud of that whole story that we did, and that when we just had magic. Me and Matt can blindly go out there at this point and have great matches. I've worked Daisuke Sekimoto a bunch of times in Japan. Very happy with a lot of those matches. Like me and him just click. I think we're on the same page all the time. There's a lot of guys, a lot of stuff that I'm proud of. There's a lot of stuff people just haven't seen that I think, I'm very proud of. Like I recently am very proud of what me and Tito Escondido did, or the Bad Dude Tito, as people know him at Championship Hollywood, which hasn't even aired yet. We did a no rules, no ropes match, and I kind of went into this a little blind, kind of like I didn't know what to expect, what we could do, how far we could go. And for a television match, I mean, it got a lot of talk. There's things that as I sit back and go, yeah, but there's matches with Jake Christ and Sammy Callahan and a ton of guys that I could sit here and say, hey, I'm really proud of that, or things like, just fun stuff that we've done that, hey, this worked and I'm really happy about it. But it is what it is. So again, I like to ramble, and anybody's listening to this, I will talk all day if you let me. So.
No,
I catch up with myself. So.
No, you're fine. Now, I wanted to transition a little bit because I wanted to ask you, how did the Dojo Deej character come about?
Well, I might have to give away a little bit of CZW storyline here, but
Uh-oh, cover your ears, everybody.
that's all right. It's not a big deal. So, at this point, as where I am in my career with Combat Zone Wrestling and what Dojo Wars is designed to be and what it was when I created it and what it is now and what it's growing into, DJ Hyde has probably been in CZW history the biggest heel the company's ever had. And I mean, if not the biggest, one of,
Right.
I am the evil Vince McMahon owner character, but I also have the ability to be the biggest, most physical guy in the company that does death matches and has all the control and yada, 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 yada. So about a year ago, a little more than that now, because Tournament Death is in a month here almost. The idea was to bury me. And legitimately, if anybody saw that, John Zandig buried me. And I mean, he stuck me in a hole and
yeah, I've seen it.
Had they were going to dump the dirt on me and everything. And unfortunately, the storyline that we had with John and myself didn't work out. So the idea was for me to come back as a babyface. The CZW crowd that is currently there and the fan base has known me for pretty much 15 plus years of my career in CZW as a heel. There have been some few baby face good guys stints and things. So Dojo Deeds was more me being me and having fun with it and transitioning and going, hey, if you look at some of the places that I work and wrestle locally, SWF, H2O, just in the prominent area that we're in, which I don't wrestle in this area a lot, and I don't want to for a lot of reasons. But the places I do, I'm a babyface. And it works. And I'm not just the babyface. I'm like a babyface. I'm like the babyface. I'm like one of the top guys. And that's not just because of my skill. It's just because of how the crowd's reacting. So Dojo Wars is a place designed to play with things. So we're just having fun with it. Your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler. David Starr is one of the trainers here. He's also one of my students. He's somebody that I trained and we're just having fun with it. And for me, I'm looking at it as it's a benefit for them, for these young kids and these people trying to get opportunity to grow, to wrestle me, somebody who's been, has a much different view on professional wrestling than 95% of the business, and try and learn my way and go into it how it is. But it's also building my character for CZW. I've been pretty much off of CZW shows since Tournament of Death last year. I'm not planning to return for a while, and that originally I was supposed to return in February, and that didn't happen. I keep pushing it. So, it's, hey, is this going to work? Because there's a lot of people within the company, within just the wrestling community, that do not think DJ Hyde can be a babyface. They just think people will not accept it because I am the heel. I am the bad guy. Usually when I get booked to come into a new place, they bring me in and say, we want you to be that guy. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. No problem. And go in and be the bad guy. And now it's time to be the good guy. And I don't know how long I'll continue wrestling. I mean, I'm going to have a good run. It's not like I'm retiring anytime soon. God forbid something doesn't happen. As a babyface, this is where I'm testing things. This is where we're playing with it. And at Dojo Wars, it's a very small environment, but it was a test. And I think at this point, I'm probably the most over character on the show as a babyface.
I'd agree with that.
I'm just out there having fun, and I'm just out there like trying new things, and and saying, hey, does this work? How does somebody respond to this? And which is what I want the students to do. And I want the people from the other places that are being sent here, whether they're being sent by another wrestling school or some of their trainer or another wrestler or WWE or whatever it is, and they come here and they do these things, that you want to find ways to develop them and try to develop guys. And that's what I'm doing with myself. It's me teaching myself in the ring here, but it's not something I haven't done. I mean, I've been doing it for years, and it's just that you kind of get stuck in that mindset of, no, this is who I am, this is who I got to be. And now I'm really not. I can be anything I want to be. So, it's the next chapter of DJ Hyde, and Dojo Deej is, just another character that we came up with. So, I'll be your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler.
Okay, now Rob in our chat wants to know your thoughts on Cardboard Deej.
Which version? There's actually
I'm assuming the one he means that has blood on it.
Oh, there's three of them. But,
that doesn't narrow it down.
Originally, what we had is there was ideas to do cardboard cutouts of the wrestlers and do like the standing props like WWE does, and they were very popular for a while. So they made the idea to make me, and they made about 10 of them, I think. And then at one point, I think David Starr and JT Dunn were carrying them around as the juicy product. Danny Havoc has one now that he throws darts at. So that one's interesting. There's still, I think there's 2 of them still in the dojo. I think there's one in the office. And I know there's another one which is probably under the ring somewhere. There's been a few that have been destroyed. El Gordo Libre has one. I don't think people know who he is, but
he's actually one of my favorite luchadors.
Yes, he is. He's one of my favorites too. There's a couple of them still floating around. A couple of them were purchased by fans. So I mean, there's a few that do have blood on them. That I think there's one at Flyer Skate Zone. I think there's one in Dayton too. Yeah, I'm positive there's one in the Rockstar Pro Arena.
I was going to say, I think the one I'm referring is the one that Connor Claxton got bloody at the dojo.
That one's probably one of the ones that's at the dojo. It's kind of been an ongoing joke for years. I mean, I'm a very controversial figure, especially in the wrestling community. And, I'm very outspoken. This is how I feel. And if you ask me a question, like, I'll give you my honest opinion. I don't always come professionally or correct to people. I just tell you, here's what I feel and here's what I think. And, I think that I've always, as a bad guy, never minded people making a joke of me. I don't mind when people do things as long as it's at the sheer entertainment of the audience. If they did a Dojo Deej cutout and I was in a dress, oh well. I mean, it's.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, you can't take yourself so seriously.
It's professional wrestling. If you look at, we go out here and fake, we're in spandex. I mean, we're walking around with the highest paid wrestler in the world is The Rock. He turned 45 today. And, he makes more money in Hollywood, and he says a comment, do you smell what The Rock is cooking? Do you understand how stupid that is? But nobody cares. I mean, they put boots to asses on T-shirts and sold millions of Austin 316. Like, just weird, funny things. Nothing has been taken seriously. I mean, if you look at some of the characters that we have built in professional wrestling, and even in CZW, I mean, look at some of the stuff that we do at Dojo Wars and on a grander scale, or WSU, my women's company. I mean, if you see some of the things and characters that we have in the professional wrestling business, if you take yourself seriously, that's a major, major problem.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that because his brother is in here right now, one that you mentioned with the dojo, like Billy's character. He's hysterical.
Yeah, Billy Danvers is, he's a character. It's unfortunately his character is pretty much how he is in real life. But for him, if you can't take him so seriously. If you put him in the ring with someone, like say Chris Dickinson or something like that, you can't take that seriously. It's you would assume Chris would eat him up, and that's what Chris should do. But if Chris, Billy's also a trained professional athlete, so he knows how to do things, and then it's a really, really catch-22. I mean, you have people in the business right now like Congo Kong. I mean, it's crazy. It's just that you have guys putting socks on their hands and knocking people out.
Yeah, I understand completely. Now, what I wanted to ask you is, what has it been like for you wrestling, like the dojo? I call them the dojo kids, like, because they're still learning, most of them. Wrestling them almost on a weekly basis. Like, how has that been for you?
I mean, this was part of what I created Dojo Wars, for. It's originally when we first started it the idea was to get a lot of experienced guys that are local, like myself, Drew Gulak at the time, Joe Gacy, et cetera, in with these younger talents so they could learn and then develop them. And then originally we were doing this, I think once a month we started doing it, and it was giving them matches and giving them opportunity. And that was a big part of the idea, and then it evolved. Then we moved it to bi-weekly, and then we moved it to weekly because we want to, the more and more you're in that ring in front of a live crowd. It's one thing doing it here at the dojo and training just, with the trainers and other trainees here. It's another thing to have a live crowd react to you. And, you need experienced people in there to learn from. You're not going to get any better if you're not working guys that aren't better than you. Bottom line. I mean, it like I said in the very beginning, it doesn't happen overnight. And what does happen, though, is you learn from everybody. You could be wrestling 40 years and you're still learning in this business, but it's all about who's around you. If you associate people around you that are on your same level, it just doesn't, you're not going to get any better. You've got to go out and make those opportunities for yourself.
Right. I absolutely agree. Now, you mentioned about, when you started this with Drew and yourself and Joe Gacy, you're coming up. It's next week, I believe, is the 3-year anniversary of Dojo Wars. What does that personally mean to you that you've
actually
gone...
I think it's 2 weeks. I think it's the 17th, right? Yeah, 2 weeks.
Okay, my bad. 2 weeks. Yeah, like, what does that mean to you, like, personally, that you're going on 3 years now?
Well, I mean, we've done about 130 Dojo Wars. Just here at the dojo. It's not including the 3 mega events, and now we're doing super events, and it has evolved and literally turned into something that I can grow this into. And it's still a learning process. It's also something where I can look at new talent. Like, if you look at some of the talent that's come through Dojo Wars and it's made a name here, I mean, whether they're in CZW, WWE, or anywhere else, it blows your mind. I mean, of the guys that have actually partaken on a dojo show. I mean, I'll use right now the guy who's in the main event of our next show, Joey Janela. Joey Janela was made at Dojo Wars. The Bad Boy was made through Dojo Wars. His girlfriend, Penelope Ford, Dojo Wars. Leo Rush is competing for the CZW World title. He started here at Dojo Wars with Patrick Clark, who is currently in NXT. I mean, I could continue to go on. Kimber Lees and all of them. This was a concept that we've been doing for a long time. We've done it through the NBA. We're next. We're Stars of the Future or something like that. Some version that we were doing them when we were in the arena. Now we're doing it more in a different level. I found ways to evolve this and teach us. Like, I don't book the shows. I I just go and dictate some certain things that, hey, I want this and this and this. Let's try this. MLJ, I'm teaching him. CZW's main goal is to get to television, and run a weekly television show. Emil is a phenomenal mind when it comes to, telling story, and he watches a lot of wrestling. He has vast knowledge. He's part of the team here that is our creative team. He has a lot of influence. This is teaching him just as it's teaching the students and everybody else. And we've dumbed it down. Like, we don't have music for the regular Dojo Award shows. We do that on purpose. It's definitely an experience, and definitely something that is going to continue to evolve. And hopefully at some point we'll start taking it out of the dojo and actually running more main shows.
Yeah, it's fun, and like you mentioned about Emil, he is probably one of, if not the most, like, hardcore wrestling fan that I know.
Okay.
Like, he watches everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's still learning for him. I want to teach a lot of different people things that I've learned, and things that people are currently teaching me. I mean, the amount of things I've learned backstage is behind the scenes is a bigger play than doing stuff out in front of the camera. It's, my career is going to transition into becoming, someone behind the scenes, a booker, a producer, someone like that down the line. It's what's the evolution of professional wrestling, and this is teaching guys like Emil that.
Right. Now, is there a goal of yours, either as a performer or a promoter, that you haven't yet achieved, or you're like trying to?
Tons of them. Yeah, I have tons of them. It's one of those things that you constantly have to have drive in this industry. If you don't set goals, whether short term or long term, you're just gonna sit here and fodle around and float from place to place. As a professional wrestler, I have one goal. That's to continue making a living doing this. And very few people do that. Somehow I've managed to pull it off. And I don't know how. Now, my goals are to develop people. I think I've done a great job of that over the years. I don't think I'll ever get any credit for it. But, if you look at the people that have come through my system, whether I train them personally or whether we have, set them up where they've worked for us and learned from us and a number of other things, it's quite fathomable. Some of the biggest stars ever. I mean, like, the guys that you're seeing that are going to be the guys in the next 5 to 10 years, these are guys that legitimately, have been through. I mean, if you look at just WWE, 3 of their top 5 guys have been through our system that had my influence, and some of them have even influenced me. It's, you're learning from everybody. It's, if you look at NXT, I mean, I can sit here and be like, this guy, it's crazy. It really, really is. As a promoter, though, I have a lot of big goals. Obviously, I want to become a television company. I know when people hear that come out of my mouth and they're like, that's not CZW. No, I still want to be CZW, just not on TV. I want to reach bigger audiences. I want to be that guy. I want to be, that ROH or TNA or whatever, WWE. I want to be those. I want to be on a national scale. I want to do local television like we used to do.
I was just going to say that. I remember, I think it was the early 2000s. They used to be on the Atlantic City affiliate, I want to say.
Yeah, WGTW is what I think it was.
Yeah.
ECW is on the same channel. And, I mean, I want to start there and grow. I'm part of the United Wrestling Network with Dave Marquez. I just, we have a lot of challenges that lie ahead of us. I think the end of 2017, you're going to see a lot of big changes in CZW. In 2018, we're going to kick off some things. We have some things brewing and some things we're working out that, are are pretty big. Obviously, we're bringing Onita in, which has never been done. You know, we've announced the date is August 5th. We haven't announced where yet. And part of that is challenges that we have to get past.
I could only imagine.
Same thing with television. You know, in the Philadelphia market, Sinclair Broadcasting runs about 80% of the stations, and that's a challenge. You know, and that's not that we don't have a good relationship with them. It's just they own a wrestling company on television. You know, they manage TV stations. That's their main source of revenue. They own and run them. So it limits us. And there's only so many channels we can go on, and I don't want to. You know, I'm not going to pay to play. It's not. I don't think that's fair. You know, I want to go on and I want to put on a good product. You know, I want to create. You know, one of the things I think CZW has been lacking over the last couple of years in my ownership is environment. You know, like we talked about the dojo. Dojo Wars has an environment. It's very unique. It's fun. It's cool. It's hip. You know, it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
You know, where CZW, it's a little different. You know, I'm focusing on what I like to call the wrapper. You know, production values and lighting and things. And, you know, I'm going to grow that. But obviously we have some other limitations, financial being probably the biggest. I have lots of things that I want to do, but, you know, a lot of things cost money. Nobody's just going to hand me over and say, hey, here's this.
Well, like you've told me before, people don't understand how much it costs just for one table or one chair or, you know what I mean? Like those types of things.
Well, you also got to look at it from the perspective of, you know, most wrestling companies are drawing maybe 100 people, 150. We draw significantly more than that. We're 300-400, and then bigger shows and, you know, thousands and stuff like that. But like a table is about $100, and that's just on average, and that's cheap. A chair, you can get them cheaply for $10. Okay, and that's Walmart. All right, they're usually like $9.89 or something like that. And then whatever taxes and all that stuff. So we're probably breaking, you know, 10 chairs a show, you know, or if you look at Dojo Wars, and sometimes, you know, we do some hardcore stuff there. I think Connor and Jimmy broke like 7 chairs. Well, we're not drawing enough people at $5 a pop to pay for that. Like,
yeah.
And then that comes out of there. Or like now, like, you know, like we painted the building that, you know, we've done other things. We're actually doing some more stuff to the dojo. That all comes out as a price. But to me, I want to make sure you as a customer or as a fan or as a supporter, whatever you want to call it, have that experience when you walk in there. You're like, oh, this is cool. Like, yeah, this is fun. You know, I want to be here. You know, like one of the challenges, great example, the Onita show. Everybody knows I could take it down to the farm in Delaware and do it at the Old Devon Underground. And, you know, but nobody wants to sit out in 100-degree heat in August.
No.
But there's challenges to what's going on. You know, there's codes and laws and, you know, athletic commissions. And, you know, it's like Tournament of Death. I'm not just out there, you know, I'm not a guy who's out there just in the backwoods of nowhere. There's a reason why I do it on the farm. You know, it's my parents' farm. It's a free venue. We pay thousands of dollars to run in venues up here. Not a couple $100, thousands of dollars.
Oh, I believe it.
You know, we run most of our shows in a building where the Philadelphia Flyers, one of the major sports teams, train. They're in the building on a daily basis. The building is owned by Comcast SpectraCorp. That's a pretty big deal. You know, it's plus I also don't want to bastardize things. I want Tournament of Death to be that Woodstock of deathmatch. I want it to be what it is. You know, and I want it to grow, and I want it to be special. If I start bastardizing, that's going to make it not as special.
Yeah, I was going to say you don't want to water it down.
Mm-hmm. It's the same thing like when we talk about the Dojo Wars mindset. So, like, we have the mega show, which is Cage of Death. That's our WrestleMania. That's our big super-duper, like, that's what we build to. Now we're going to have super shows, which will be the 3rd or 4th Friday of every month, depending on schedules and holidays and things like that. And those will cost $10. Those are our pay-per-view style show. That is what Dojo Wars is going to be built to. That's the pay. You want to go out there and do craziness? We'll do it then. You know, and then what we're going to do is whatever money we make, we're going to reinvest into the dojo. Whether it's, you know, buying more chairs because we keep breaking things, or whether it's buying some better equipment or, making it nicer. One of the new things that we're doing, we're putting Wi-Fi in, so that we can do some things on CZW Studios.
Nice.
We want to start filming Dojo Wars live on CZW Studios. It's one of the new things that we're working towards by the end of the year. But again, we need supporters and money, and we want them to have a good time. And that is the challenge right now, and that's where we are. Part of Dojo Wars, if you'll notice, anybody who gets to watch it, or you watch it on YouTube or watch it on CZW Studios, because we started uploading there, you were noticing that the students do everything. They film, the refs, they edit the shows, they do everything. I don't touch it. I don't send that stuff to my staff. My staff does CZW and WSU. I want them to focus on it so that they know how important it is to have editing, how important it is to have good video content or a camera shot or something like that. That's an important thing. You don't ever want to watch a DVD or a show and miss that great spot or that cool thing that you wanted to see. So
absolutely.
It's teaching them whether they stay with us or go to a different level of where they'll be.
No, it makes absolute sense. Now, you actually had mentioned this a little bit earlier. You probably, I would say, at least 20 guys and girls that are, I guess you would call it, the big time, that are on television every week now, whether it's NXT, WWE, Impact, what have you. What does that mean to you? Because it almost is like you could say the CZW is kind of like a stepping stone or even a filter system to getting to that bigger stage.
Well, I mean, I look at things a little bit differently. The difference between WWE and us is that they're perceived to be something, and they have a lot more money and a lot more connections. But for wrestlers, I mean, that have come through our system, I mean, where we are on this level and this status, it's preparing them for that. It just shows what CZW really is. I think a lot of people underestimate who we are. I think a lot of people have a preconceived notion that we are they're just light tubes and barbed wire. I've been hearing it for years, but we're not. But the downside is that a company like World Wrestling Entertainment doesn't want to be associated with us because we do that. Like, as I said, we're going to do a little bit of a rebranding. If you look at the CZW logo, it has barbed wire in it. Well, every single television company I've spoke to has pretty much said that is a problem. So we're going to do a little bit of a rebrand. We're going to change the logo up. We're going to do some new things and kind of get away from that. If you look, the focus has always been on wrestling. Yes, death matches are going to be on top, but you notice they got to build somewhere. I mean, if you look at our next show, Sacrifices, the main event is a steel cage match with Joey Janela and Matt Tremont. That has been building for months. It's not something that's short term. It's now we're here. Now they're going to go out there and do this. It's what I want to do, but I just, we need supporters. We need people to come out and say, yes, we want to see this, and they're into the stories. I mean, I can tell you, there is a booking change completely. It has been through most of the year. There is a team of people who book the shows now. Has been for the last 2 years. Right. But we always run into challenges. It's really hard to push a guy like Drew Gulak and then all of a sudden he's signed. You get a little bit of a heads up, but 3 months usually doesn't do it. And by that 3 months, they're also moving to Florida and doing all. There's a lot of challenges that go into it at this level. And we're not at a position where, I can put guys under a contract and they can make a living. That's a goal to get to that position. Right. It's tough, but that's where we're going to be.
Okay. Now, lastly, what can we expect from you in the future?
From me as a professional wrestler? Or
yeah. Well, you can say both.
I'm in a much different place in my career right now. I'm just, I'm happy to be wrestling, and making money. And, there are things I want to do. CZW is going to be doing a lot of travel towards the end of the year. Obviously, we announced that we'll be going back to Chicago with freelance wrestling. We're looking at running a show in Cleveland this year. We're looking at running a show in Dayton, Ohio again, which we frequent. I believe in October we're going to be running a show in North Carolina. Obviously, we're going to be at WrestleMania next year. We're going back to Europe. So we'll be running events in London and in Germany and maybe France and Hungary. But, some of those things, dates aren't confirmed. It's, hey, this is something we want to do. We're going to make it work. For me as a wrestler, in the last 2 years, I've turned down a lot of opportunities. It's been a year since I've been back to, a little more than a year and a half now since I've been back to Japan. Now I'm ready to start doing that. I think you're going to see, for me personally, a little bit of a rebrand. The Lariat God character and kind of the Dojo Deeds are going to kind of merge. I prefer to try and be a babyface now when I work for places, but I can still be a heel. I'll still be the whatever they need me to be. I want to build CZW to what it really should be. I love the haters. I really do. I love the people that every day I wake up on Twitter or Facebook or something and hear them, speaking negatively. I love it. I mean, I want to sit here and set these challenges, and also start gearing me to move on to my next place in wrestling. When I bought CZW, it wasn't like, oh, I just want to buy a wrestling company. No, I was with World Wrestling Entertainment for a little bit. I messed up pretty bad there, made some mistakes. And then, I said, hey, how am I going to, stay in the business and do what I love? And, that's a lot more to it than that. But I moved on to become a promoter. And from that, I started learning. And now here we are 7 years later, or 8 years almost later here. I've learned a lot. It's time to start moving in another direction so that I garner it all. And, I will be 40 next year. Not that I'll be done anytime soon. Wrestlers go, they go well past 40 years old. But I'm going to more transition into that and working with other companies through the United Wrestling Network, producing shows. Like, I don't think a lot of people recognize that I'm one of the, I do a lot more championship wrestling from Hollywood than just wrestle on the show, and, take CZW where it should be and where it needs to be. Those are a lot of my goals. I mean, I can sit here and ramble and say, I want to do this and this and this and this. But there's that. I mean, and then Dojo Wars and WSU are my two other brands. I mean, WSU has a huge show coming up with, 10-woman steel cage and War Games. It's crazy. One of the things we're going to do with WSU this year, I'm going to run a standalone show where it's not a doubleheader with CZW. It's going to run on its own at night. And it's up to the girls and the talent. And see how far they can take it. See how bad they really want to make this successful. As far as Dojo Wars is growing at a pretty alarming pace. The fact that we've been around 3 years, which is better than most wrestling companies last, is astonishing me. And the fact that we're putting on a quality weekly show, and now we're going to be doing super shows once a month. I mean, I'm very excited about it. I'm looking forward to the challenges and developing all the talent that is, going to be coming in and hopefully building the future of professional wrestling, not just for CZW, because there's going to be some guys that, they're just not going to fit what we're doing or, but they might fit somewhere else. Like, I love Billy Danvers, but I don't think he's a full main roster CZW guy. He's a guy I can throw out there once in a while. He's a guy that, like, let's build him through the backstage. And then building the new team behind the scenes. A lot of the old team is going to be leaving us here soon. We've brought in people like Giancarlo D'Amato, Dave Marquez. We're going to be bringing in a lot of new people behind the scenes and start getting more out there to the fan base. People see those great Joey Janela videos and Maxwell Jacob Friedman now is what he's changed his name to. With Maria Manic. Don't start me on that. I'll go off. It's really getting people and getting CZW and WSU and Dojo Wars to a new plane. So we have a lot of exciting things, but what we really need is supporters and great fans and great people that want to come out and enjoy themselves. Because we're going to get there one way or another. Either that or I'm going to kill myself doing it. So
All right,
I see a lot.
now DJ, before we head out, how can people contact you on social media if they want to reach you?
I'm at DJ Hyde _1. You can find me any day, or you can email me. It's at djhyde@czwrestling.com. More than happy to do whatever you need.
All right. Well, I want to personally thank you once again for coming on here, and we learned a lot this evening.
Hopefully, I'll be on again soon. And anytime, guys, and anytime you guys need anything, feel free to contact me at any DJI _1. I'm very easy to find, or email me at djI@czwrestling. But I had a great time and hope to be back again soon.
Okay. All right, everyone. We're going to get out of here for tonight. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, give it a thumbs up, all that good shit. And we'll see you back next time. Have a good night, everybody.